bookmark there, whatever you need to do. Book of Jonah, small, one of the minor prophets in the Old Testament, but it's packed with stuff that we can apply. Right? And we're going to take our time just sort of picking our way through this entire book, finding things that God wants to teach us through the life of Jonah. Now, we probably grew up hearing the story of Jonah and the whale, right? Jonah and the big fish, whatever. You want to get into a big theological fight. Was it a whale or was it a fish? Who cares? Does it really matter? If you get swallowed by something in the ocean, it's not going well for you. Right? Could have been Shark Week. We don't know. But we grew up with this story. Maybe saw it on the flannel graph. Maybe saw a VeggieTales version of it. I don't know what you saw. There's so many lessons for us to learn here. We've talked about how Jonah has run from God, right? How God says, hey, I want this for you, Jonah. I've got this job for you. I want you to go to Nineveh. I want you to go to the enemy. I want you to go to these brutalizers. And I want you to declare some things that may put your life in danger. Jonah's like, no, thank you. I think I'll go to Tarshish. So he goes down to Joppa and he gets on a ship, and we talked about that, how he was on the ship and the Lord sent a storm. Life is full of storms, yes? I look around and I see your face and I think about things that I know that some of you have gone through. Hard things. Storms. After the sermon last week, several of you came to me and said, this is the hard thing that I'm in right now. This is the storm. And God is in the storm. You say, well, if I was God, I would do it differently. I don't know that I would send storms. I might, send butterflies and cotton candy and stuff like that. Well, you're not God. You don't get to choose. And as hard as the storms are, there are always lessons for us to be learning in the middle of the storm. And just because it's storming doesn't mean God has lost control of things, right? Thursday night, I think it was Thursday night, and Friday, I guess. There's some stuff that blew through here. Some of you just got your power back on yesterday, right? Thankfully, just in time to take a shower before you came to church. We're so grateful. Man, the wind was blowing. The skies were dark. We were tuned in to our favorite local news station to listen to them babble on about all the technicalities of the storm. I'm like, why don't you you got to make up your mind. You're either going to the basement or you're going to the porch to watch this thing. And it was powerful, and some of you had a lot of things to clean up afterwards. In those moments in life when the storm is raging, we are tempted very much to think that God has abandoned us. Sometimes those storms are caused by the poor, rebellious choices that we make. And sometimes God sends storms even when we're faithful and following, because he's choosing to teach us something through these things in this way. Storms are part of it. Jonah was in a storm. The mariners that were sailing the ship that Jonah was on, they were terrified. They didn't know Jesus, right? They weren't God followers. They had their gods, little g. And they were freaking out, and they were praying to their little g gods, and they were throwing their stuff overboard. And finally, Jonah confessed that he was the problem, that God had sent the storm on his account, and they threw Jonah overboard. Which brings us to today's text. Jonah chapter 1, the last verse of Jonah 1 on into chapter 2. Let's just read it together. If you've got a Bible, follow along. If not, just listen carefully. Jonah has been thrown overboard at this point, right? I don't think he was probably bobbing around in the sea. He was probably sinking to the bottom. Probably thought it was the end. God wasn't done, right? Verse 17, and the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Now, for some of us that have grown up around church and we've heard this story 1,000 times, it's like, yeah, we read that. And it's like, of course God sent a giant fish to swallow Jonah. But can you imagine? You think Jonah was anticipating this? I doubt it. But God appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. That must have been lovely. And Jonah prayed to the Lord, his God, from the belly of the fish. And look what he says, and this is the substance that I want us to draw some application out of this morning. Jonah's praying to God, and he says this, I called out to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. You cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight. Yet I shall look again upon your holy temple. The waters closed in over me to take my life. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head at the roots of the mountains. I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit, O Lord my God. When my life was fading away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you. It came to you in your holy temple. Those who pay regard to vain idols forsake their hope of steadfast love. But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. And what I have vowed, I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Quite a prayer from the deep. Jonah came to realize some things. And this is what I want to talk about for a few minutes this morning. He came face to face with reality. Right? Look at where he is. He's hurled into the sea. Right? I don't think these guys just said, okay, if you want to, do a cannonball or little jackknife, swan dive, whatever you want to do, Jonah, we just need to leave you. You need to leave the ship. No, they picked him up and they hurled him into the sea. That must have been terrifying. He's hurled into the sea. And I think at this point, the consequences of Jonah's actions, of Jonah's choices, of Jonah's rebellion are rushing at him unimpeded. Right? He knows exactly why this is happening. He knows that he has brought this upon himself. He knows that he has been running from God and God was not having it. He wasn't thinking, oh, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I can figure this out. I can talk my way out of this. I can swim my way to shore. No, he wasn't thinking these things. The reality and consequence of Jonah's rebellion against God was right there in front of him, and he knew exactly what was happening. He recognizes the mess that he has made of his life. He recognizes the trouble that he's in. And in that moment, his prayer, it's not sanitized, it's not all clean and pretty and churched up. It's raw, it's real. He's beyond fooling or hiding from anybody at this point, especially beyond fooling and hiding from God, as though he could, right? We think we can sometimes, but God will not be hid from. He will not be fooled. None of it takes him by surprise. So we look at Jonah's situation. We see Jonah coming to grips with his reality. What can we apply from this? I think there's some obvious applications. Number one is this, that our actions will not be divorced from consequence. Our actions will not be divorced from consequence. If you play with fire, you will get burned. If you ignore the speed limit, you're going to get a ticket. Some of you in here this morning may be under the delusion that you will get away with your rebellion and disobedience to God. You say, well, yeah, Mick, I have to this point. God sees. And there are consequences to our actions. Your sin will be found out. The Bible is clear. God sees us. God knows us. Nothing is hid from him. And when he disciplines us, it's not merely to punish us, but just like in Jonah's case, it is meant formatively to change us, to conform us to his image, to his will, to do the things that he has asked us to do. So action is not divorced from consequence. And like Jonah, we need to come to grips with the miserable reality of life that is lived outside of God's purpose and plan for us. There's no more miserable person on the planet than somebody who is living outside of God's purposes and plans for their life. You say, I don't know, Mick, I kind of would maybe argue with that because I see some successful people and they seem pretty happy and they have things and they seemingly are successful and they have all kinds of stuff going on that seem to be for them. Listen, the stuff of earth does not ultimately satisfy us. And when we are living life outside of what God has for us, his purposes and plans, there's no joy. Jonah is finding this out in a very pronounced way, right? So he ran from God. He knew he was running from God. The storm came. The guys threw him overboard. And now this giant fish comes out of nowhere and swallows him up. How's it going, Jonah? Not good. We have to recognize it for what it is, and we need to respond to it in ways that move us back toward God and what he has for us. Here's another point of application. We need to get honest about the reasons that we're suffering and struggling, right? Some of you are suffering and you're struggling and you're in the midst of life storms, and it feels like Jonah, like the waves are just coming over you, and maybe you have gone as low as you feel like you can go, and then the big fish comes and swallows you up, and it just gets that much worse. But you're still in denial about it. You know, your addiction, it's drowning you. But still, you bow your knee to the bottle or to the needle or to the pills or to the porn or to the phone. or to food, whatever your addiction may be. You refuse to call it what it is. Or maybe your bitterness and resentment and your unwillingness to forgive is swallowing you alive, and yet you still increase your resolve to somehow avenge the inequities that somebody has placed upon you, the wrongs that somebody has done to you. You're going to hold on to that. You're going to hold it over their head. And you think in doing so, you're doing something injurious to another person, but what's really happening in reality is it's a cancer and it's eating you alive. Or maybe you're ensnared with your pursuit of satisfaction in things other than God, and the rat race owns you. And it's about maximizing your bank account or your 401k or whatever so that you can maintain a certain level of ease in life. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with material things or there's anything wrong with having material possessions or having money. But when it has you and you're looking to it for your satisfaction, this is the belly of a great fish. It drives you to a place where you sacrifice everything. You sacrifice church, you sacrifice family, you sacrifice your own health or your personal relationship with Jesus. Or maybe it's this, maybe your efforts to appear religious and super spiritual in front of everyone, to be the king or the queen of a kingdom that is full of spiritual peasants compared to you. You're spiritually superior, as though you are above the hard realities of life that are intended to steer you away from your false sense of spiritual superiority and religion and steer you towards relationship with Jesus. Maybe that's you. And those inauthentic and disingenuous efforts are shackling you. And they're robbing you of true joy and freedom. And they've created a critical and judgmental spirit in you. Maybe a holier than thou sort of posture toward everyone. And you are wearing the chains of discontentment that come from your arrogant comparison and judgmental spirit with everyone who is around you. It's like being in the belly of a fish. It's like stinky fish guts. This is Jonah's reality. He had to see it for what it was. We need to see it for what it is. We need to stop pretending that the hard thing isn't the hard thing. We need to admit that we've made it to the bottom sometimes, and we need to get honest and open our eyes to what it is that's happening and see it as unconventional grace or the severe mercy of God, as we've talked about, that's being extended to us. Jonah acknowledged his reality. Secondly, he acknowledged God's sovereignty. Look at what he says in his song, in this prayer, right? He says, "You cast me into the deep. You, God, you cast me into the deep." He says, "All your waves and your billows passed over me." And as we said earlier, the fish was not random. Just like, oh man, he's swimming along and suddenly there's a Happy Meal in front of him. Wasn't that? No, God appointed the fish. God's sovereign hand was in this whole thing. It's funny how discipline and deliverance are intertwined. The same God who sent the storm is the same God who sent the fish. And in Jonah's case, his downward spiral is the fruit of disobedient choices. But even in that, we cannot deny the hand of God at work in Jonah's life. God's hand sovereignly preserving Jonah in his life, pathetic as it was, right? Again, God could have just let him sink to the bottom and that would have been the end of it. In fact, I think if Jonah had a preference, maybe he would have chosen to do that rather than spend 3 days in the belly of a fish. But God was protecting and preserving Jonah sovereignly. And he was sovereignly shaping and perfecting him, preparing him for his next assignment. And Jonah doesn't say, hey, those sailors, they ruined my life. Or man, what a stroke of bad luck this was. I mean, I just got on the wrong ship. I should have picked a different ship. No, Jonah recognized that it was God that was at the center of this. And for all his faults, at least Jonah had the wherewithal to admit that this was the sovereign hand of God. Some of us are going through storms and we are just like, well, it's just bad luck, or it's just, I can figure this out. This is kind of common, everyday garden variety problems that I'm having. No, we refuse to recognize that God is at work in your life. Or maybe you have a victim mentality. It's just like, well, all this bad stuff is always happening to me. Or maybe God's trying to get your attention. He certainly was with Jonah. God is not the author of evil. We've said that so many times. You've heard me say it from the pulpit before. But here's the thing. God can work in evil circumstances, and God can use the hard things in life for his glory and for our good. That's what God can do. So for the person that's here, that's in a mess of their own making, part of repentance is saying, Lord, this isn't just bad luck. This isn't just an unfortunate circumstance. It's saying, no, Lord, you've allowed these consequences to come. You're using this to wake me up. And maybe for the person that is suffering, that did not suffering on themselves, you don't have to say, this is my fault, but you can say, this is not outside of my Father's control. These are his waves. These are his billows. This is his appointed fish, and he's trying to teach me something. God is not intent on destroying us, as you may feel like sometimes. That's not his intent. His aim, rather, is to restore us, to prepare us for what is next as we follow and as we obey him. So Jonah comes to grips with and acknowledges his reality. He acknowledges the sovereignty of God in all things, and then he also more acutely acknowledges God's presence in these things. Look at Jonah's lament in this prayer. Lament is one of those things that we don't really practice very often anymore, but it's something we should practice. But look at what Jonah says. He says, I'm driven away from your sight. God, you're out of sight. I can't even see you anymore, God. You ever feel that way? Like God is gone? Like I can't see God in anything around me? This is where Jonah's at. It makes sense. He's in the belly of a fish, in the middle of the ocean. And then he says, when my soul was fainting away, he recognized that he was dying. This is his lament. But look at God's presence. I'm driven away from your sight, yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. There's some hope in what he's saying. My soul was fainting, God. Yet when it was fainting, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you in your holy temples. So God is not actually, he's not left the building. Jonah knew, even though he was running from God, Jonah knew that God was still present, that God was still there. It's critically important that we recognize the presence of God, even in the hardest parts of our lives. You say, Mick, that's so hard. I get it. I know. There are times when we've been going through hard things, or God has allowed hard things to come into life, and I'm just like, God, what in the world? Where are you in this? The same gateway for Jonah is the gateway that we must walk through too, and that's the gateway of faith. This is an opportunity for us to exercise faith, faith over what we're fearing, faith over our own overestimated power to rescue ourselves. You ever feel like, hey, I know I can get out of this? Like troubles come and we go to Excel and we open a spreadsheet and we're going to put in some formulas and we're going to fix this. This is how we operate, some of us. Self-rescue was not an option for Jonah, right? God was out of sight. I mean, no Wi-Fi in this fish for whatever reason. No cell signal. And I don't think the first episode of MacGyver had aired yet, so he couldn't make something out of a tube sock and a piece of twine that he had in his pocket and get out of this situation. No, he was completely without resource in and of himself to rescue himself. So he knew that only God could do that. That's a hard place to be sometimes. Maybe you're here this morning and you feel like your sin is so egregious that it has somehow moved you beyond the reach of God's mercy and grace. Again, think about that with Jonah. I mean, he had to think this was the end. Right? He was overboard. He wasn't thinking of his circumstance at this point as a reset. This was surely the end. He couldn't save himself. Nobody could save him. He's sinking to the bottom of the ocean. That would be hopeless enough. And then a fish swallows him. What do you think he said? He's like, oh, thank goodness. No, I don't think so. I think he thought, well, okay. I could have died peacefully. Some of us feel this way. Mick, you don't know how bad I've blown it. Mick, you don't know the things that I've done. You don't know the wickedness and the evil that's in my heart. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to know. Here's the thing, he knows. And he can and he wants to rescue. You're not beyond it. Some of you in here are feeling that way this morning. Others of you in here this morning are wondering where God is in the middle of your crisis. Like, I'm dying here, God. Why won't you heal? Why won't you just provide? Why won't you save my marriage? Why won't you bring my rebellious kids back to me? Where are you, God? God, why won't you send revival to America? Why is such terrible stuff happening to me? Has God forgotten you? Has God forsaken you? Has he stopped loving you? Has he stopped caring about you? Sometimes it feels like that, doesn't it? Can we be honest about that? Here's what's true. He's still here. He still loves. He still cares. No, he's not showing up in the ways that we tell him to. God doesn't really do that. Some of us have the audacity to think that if I just tell God to do something, he'll do it. Okay. Let me know how that works out. And maybe he's not showing up in clean and tidy religious, pretty packages, ways that we think he should, but he's there. Maybe he's not coddling us. Maybe he's not robbing us of the consequence of rebellious action. Maybe he's not passing out participation ribbons to everybody like we think he should. Maybe he's not building his world around your world. That mean he's not there? That mean he doesn't care? No, he's there. And his mercy, as severe as it is, and his grace, as unconventional as it is at times, is there also. So what does that mean for us? It means it's time for us to exercise our faith muscle, to believe what's true about God, even when you can't seem to see him or to see it. He is holy and sovereign. He is righteous and just. He is completely intolerant of sin, but he is also faithful and merciful and gracious and unchanging in his promise. And guess what else? He is able when you're not able. He's able to heal when you can't heal yourself. He's able to rescue when you can't rescue. He's able to equip you for whatever it is he's calling you to, even when you think, I can't do this. This is beyond me. No, he's able. He's with us. Jonah acknowledged that in his prayer. One final thing that Jonah acknowledged. He acknowledged that salvation and rescue was from God. That salvation and rescue come exclusively from the Lord. God owns it. God provides for it. We can't earn it. We can't manufacture it. We don't control it. And guess what? We can't keep it from others, right? Here's Jonah. How did this all get started? Well, God wanted him to go to Nineveh, this wicked nation, this nation of enemies, this nation of barbarians, and to proclaim some things to them because he was being gracious to them. And Jonah said, no, they don't deserve it. So I'm going to Tarshish. As though Jonah had been put in charge of doling out the rescue and salvation of the Lord. You ever try to be that guy? Well, they don't deserve Jesus. Why don't you invite them to church? Well, they don't deserve to come to our church. They don't belong here. Really? They can go somewhere else. Really? Who made you the Lord of the rescue? You're not. He is. It comes exclusively from him. The thing is, when we look to life's idols for rescue and salvation, one of the things that Jonah acknowledges is that hope is completely lost. Right? Well, things are tight, but I got another job coming. I've got a bid that's out there, that a new client that's going to provide. No, how about you look to God for provision? Well, gas is $65 a gallon, and so I'm going to get an electric car or whatever. Why don't you look to God to provide what you need? We want to rescue ourselves, but we can't. So what's the application here for us? Well, to our false saviors, speaking to that, what Jonah found out was that when he got deep into the belly of the fish, his idols were exposed for what they were. No rescue. Nobody there to help him. It was just him and God. And God was holding the rescue card. And so for us, when you think about this and, your addiction, it hasn't saved you. Right? Well, no, I'm stressing a little bit. I need to go numb myself to the pain I'm feeling. No. The pain will return. It's not going to rescue you. In fact, it will enslave you. That affair that you had with the one who wasn't your spouse, what did that do for you? Did it save you? No, it shattered you. And it shattered your relationships. What about that image you're trying to create for yourself? Well, if I just look holy and spiritual, if people look up to me at church because I'm cut out of the kind of cloth that God really likes, how's that working out? That's saving you? No. You're not there to absorb the light, you're there to reflect the light. You're not there to receive the glory, you're there to reflect the glory. It belongs to the Lord. He's the rescuer. Our false saviors can't do anything for us. Maybe you don't have false saviors so much, but you're really a self-sufficient kind of person. Like, I don't need anybody. I'm fine, thank you. I got it. Any of you like that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we're all like that from time to time. You think Jonah went under one time and came back up and looked back up at the sailors and said, I'm okay, I got it. No, I don't need the life ring. I don't think so. Can't swim your way out of this one, Jonah. And at some point we must say with Jonah, salvation belongs to the Lord. I can't do this, God. Okay. I've got you. I've got it. Trust me. Stop trying so hard. Trust me. We're so self-sufficient when we need to rely on God for our salvation. And some of us are just really self-righteous. I'm good. I do religious things. And I'm super spiritual, like perfect attendance level. Spiritual. I take notes in the service. I say all the right things. I'll pray over you. I'll bless you with my eminence and presence. We're so self-righteous. Or I got this, God, I'm good. If I need your grace, I'll let you know. Jonah had nothing to offer to God. There was no righteousness that belonged to Jonah. And guess what's true of us? There's no righteousness that belongs to us. You need God. The Lord, and the Lord alone is our rescuer. Salvation belongs to Him. It's interesting that in the belly of this great fish, Jonah's hands finally open. Right? He lets go of all the vain hope. And what does he say? He says, salvation belongs to the Lord. And as he says that, that sentence is the death of his pride. And it's the birth of hope. Not that he's created, but that he's received by the severe mercy and unconventional grace of God in his life. So the application questions for us are pretty simple. Are you ready to come to grips with the reality of your lostness? You ready to recognize why it is that we're suffering? Are you ready to see the sovereign hand of God in your situation, as hard as it may be? Are you willing to yield to that sovereign hand of God? Are you ready to say that even though it feels like there's great distance between me and the Lord, it's not him that's moved or gone anywhere, it's me? Ready just to turn around and see that he's standing right there waiting for you? Are you ready to admit this morning that I can't save myself? That I can't be good enough? That I can't do enough good and right things? I can't walk enough little old ladies across the street or buy enough Girl Scout cookies or give to the poor? Or there's nothing I can do, but salvation belongs to the Lord? And since it belongs to the Lord, I also cannot decide who is worthy and who is unworthy to receive it. Lots to think about, lots for us to contemplate. We look at Jonah and we say, man, what a schmuck. Right? That's a Greek or Hebrew word, I'm sure. What a loser. What was he thinking? How did he get himself into such a mess? Careful before you start throwing rocks. Maybe you better take a minute to examine your own life. And I think if we hold the life of Jonah in this hand and our lives in this hand, we'll find more similarities than we will differences. And the grace of God and the mercy of God is as relevant and necessary for you and me as it was for old Jonah.